All right. Good morning, everybody. Glad to see you on this Christ the King Sunday. And the way the calendar goes and the way it works, it's kind of nice. As we're ending up, this is the last day of the church year, and we've already got everything decorated for Advent. But that's the one thing you do is when you're and you have people who are willing to come and help and show up on a weekend where you've got a bunch of people, where we had a lot of people yesterday to come in and kind of put it all together. You just go, let's go with it, okay? And it's up, and all right, we'll get past that. All is well. And so thankful for all the help, actually. So we'll light it all up next week, okay? It can stay dark today, and then we'll go from there. But those who were wanting to turn on the colored lights on the tree and make them blink and all that good stuff. Not mentioning any names, but Phil is just one. I give up on it. That's right. Yeah, he said he had it Bluetooth, and then it's like, no, you can't do that. I didn't know that. I'm sure there's some you can, but this one is not one of those. Okay, so it's Christ the King Sunday. You tell the story for the whole year. That's what the lectionary does. It starts off with Advent, which is next week, this expectation of this one who is coming. We grow and we prepare our hearts for the one who is coming. That's what Advent is. Not just the Christ who's coming as the child, but the Christ who is coming in glory. And then you tell the whole year to bring you to this point where we proclaim Christ is Lord of all, King of all creation, and yes, Lord of me and you as well, or us'ns. So that's what this whole story and this whole year is about, to bring us to this particular day. And then next week, and we start all over again. Because that's the story. That's all we're really meant to do as the church. You go, what are we supposed to be as a church? This entire story for the whole year, for this cycle, and then we start all over again, because this is our story. So this is the day where we say Christ is King, and then we go, what is that? And now some people have changed it in this day and age, where we're toying with language, as language is always toyed with, where people go, boy, people are changing things these days. Language has always changed and evolved and worked. So some people call it the reign of Christ now instead of Christ the King. I've just been doing it this long, and I'm probably not going to be able to be, retrained. So Christ the King is the day, and I just can't. Yeah, it's just in my head now, and so. So we come to this day and you go, what is a king, or what does a king look like, or what does royalty look like? And we all probably have our own pictures of that. Princess Di might come to mind. I don't know, or just however you understand that term and how it looks. And then so you think about that. And then we have this story that we have today, which is pretty familiar. Most people at least understand some of the phrases of this passage. And you'll go, yeah, we know that one. Or at least we sort of know this one. And so how that plays into this day, why this is the passage picked for this day. Think about that. And then also how familiar and unfamiliar we are with the passage. And then we'll get to do one of Phil's favorite things and talk about placement, because he likes to read before and after, which is typical, which is just good exegetical work. When you're working with a passage, you just can't take it in and of itself. You have to know what the context is for it to mean something. And so that's one of my very favorite passages, is that when people pull out Thessalonians, a passage, if a man doesn't work, he shouldn't eat. There you go. There we should never welfare, anything like that, bad, not good. When you pull that passage out, when you read it in context, the context is the Christians have stopped working because they're expecting Jesus to come back, and they just sat down, and Paul said, y'all get up and go to work. As Christians, do what you're supposed to do. So in the context, the text is, if you're a Christian who's not doing what you're supposed to be doing, you don't get to be a part of the fellowship. You don't get to eat. It has nothing to do with any. You want to talk about that, you got to go to other passages and look it up. But that passage, so that's where we have to take things in context. So think about, we'll talk about the context of this in just a little bit, because I find, again, all these years I've been doing this, and this is the first year this has come to light to me. Like, where have I been? And so, but that's a lot of fun. Here we are. Chapter 25 of Matthew, 31 through 46. This is long. Okay. Let's see if I can stay focused long enough to read the whole thing. Here we go. When the Son of Man comes in his glory, and all the angels with him, then he will sit on the throne of his glory. All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate people one from another, as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. Didn't know they did that, but okay. And he will put the sheep at his right hand and the goats at his left. And then the king will say to those at his right hand, "Come, you that are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. I was naked, and you gave me clothing. I was sick, and you took care of me. I was in prison, and you visited me." Then the righteous will answer him, "Lord, when was it that we saw you hungry and gave you food, or thirsty and you gave you something to drink? And when was it that we saw you a stranger and welcomed you, or naked and gave you clothing? And when was it that we saw you sick or in prison and visited you?" And the king will answer them, "Truly I tell you, just as you did it to one of the least of these, who are members of my family, you did it to me." Then he will say to those at his left hand, "You that are accursed, depart from me into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry, and you gave me no food. I was thirsty, and you gave me nothing to drink. I was a stranger, and you did not welcome me. Naked, and you did not give me clothing. Sick and in prison, and you did not visit me." Then they will also answer, "Lord, when was it that we saw you hungry or thirsty or a stranger or naked or sick or in prison and did not take care of you?" And then he will answer them, "Truly I tell you, just as you did not do it to one of the least of these, you did not do it to me." And these will go away into eternal punishment, but the righteous into eternal life. Familiar? Yes. At least we understand the least of these, right? I mean, that's at least a sentence or a phrase that people kind of pick up on and we use in public or whatever, and people go, "Oh yeah, I know what you're saying there." So, what'd you hear? What jumped out? Why'd you go, "Oh, I didn't recognize that before"?
I was thinking, I'm not sure I want to be a sheep.
Uh-huh.
Of course, I don't want to be a goat.
Uh-huh.
I thought that was the first time I made the connection that Jesus is the shepherd
Uh-huh.
and that we're the sheep.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that's a pretty familiar, I mean, that's kind of an image used in a lot of ways throughout we have a Good Shepherd Sunday in Easter, and, the Lord is my shepherd. Yeah, it's kind of a great image, except for sheep aren't exactly bright, I'm told. So, do they? Okay. Do they? Okay. Oh, okay. I don't know. Okay. I know I've always had to trust other people on this one. I mean, I don't know. I was the other day I was somewhere and they had some goats in a pen, and so I watched them for a little bit, and I thought, oh, so that's a goat. Huh. Good. I didn't, I didn't get a whole lot from it other than, I mean, just watched them run around. I mean, they seemed pretty clueless. I mean, so there you go. I didn't really get anything else from it. So, okay, so the sheep and goat, you certainly don't want to be a goat in this passage, right? Yeah, that's not good. What else jumps out to us? Yeah, that's here. This is. I mean, I, all my friends, everybody. You're always when you're looking to preach, when you're looking for the passage, you're always looking for the good news in the passage. So you read this passage and you go, neither one of these folks even understood what they had done. When did we see you? Both of them, both groups, they had no idea what was going on here. To me, that's a little scary. A lot scary. Okay, sure, I will go with that because in this passage, what is it? What hinges on these actions here? This is everything. This is everything according to this passage.
You always have to be ready.
Yeah, except for you don't know when to.
Yeah, but if I walk past you to help him, did I walk past the one I should have helped?
I know. Yeah, I know. Or if I walk, yeah, that's right. What if and okay, come on, everybody, let's get real. If you drive around Charlotte and just happen to be caught at a light, I mean, there's somebody at every. To everybody? I mean, by the end of the day, I mean, I'm like.
She didn't get a case of tracks and be handing them out?
And then I'm not trying to make light of other people's situation. Because we'll get to that in a second. But that, unless you've got Venmo, I might not be able to help you, or Apple Pay. I don't know that I'm going to have cash in my pocket,
It would be kind of scary if they came there.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah, maybe. That would draw us to have pause. And,
You don't know
yeah.
when you're supposed to.
And that's.
Give it to the ones that you know don't need it.
Of course, here we don't. We
Because you see the woman
don't know.
at the McDonald's in the Cadillac, she gets out, takes her good clothes off,
Yeah,
puts her
yeah,
jacket on, and gets her sign, she
yeah,
goes to the corner.
yeah. Well, and all throughout, I got to tell you, when I worked in urban ministry, everybody would say, "Yeah, I was behind somebody the other day in the food line, and they had their food stamp card, and then they went out and got in a Cadillac." I'm going to tell you something. All the years I worked in urban ministry, ain't nobody ever pulled up my Cadillac. It just never happened. And when I followed people out of the grocery store with that, ain't none of them getting in Cadillacs that I ever saw. So, I mean, that's all anecdotal. But here, you don't know. And let me just say, how many of us go visit people in prison? Don't raise your. Just these are rhetorical questions. Well, then they've done the right thing. But in 29 years of being a pastor, I've only had one. I've visited one. He wasn't a member of the church, but he was the son of a member of the church. Once I've been to see somebody in jail. Now, doing urban ministry, I went to the lock ward a lot, and that felt like jail. But, when the door clicked behind me, it felt like jail. But I've been once. So I'm like, am I supposed to go to jail more to see people? I mean, yeah. So that is a frightening part of this passage. We don't know either side.
And you're not supposed to judge.
Yeah. Right. And that's another thing. That's okay, that brings us to this point. Because what do we always say? Somebody said it to me the other day. Well, there for the grace of God go I. According to this passage, they're the ones, those people we deem the least of these are the family of God. They're the ones where they don't need for the grace of God go I. They got God with them. According to this passage, I'm the one that needs God, according to this passage, or at least the way I want to picture it. So, what do we do with this?
Try harder, I guess.
Is that what it is? Try harder? Wait. I mean, and according to this, we go, okay, we just did it, didn't we? We just set up our time at the Salvation Army, and we all went and helped, and people were faithful and wonderful and kind and gracious, and everybody came back and said everything went well, and it was good, and we liked going and helping, and we'll do it again. But according to this passage, you can't schedule it because you don't even know when you're doing it.
But that doesn't mean we shouldn't do those things.
No, you're right.
It's not just window dressing.
Wow.
She just put the spotlight on it.
That's a good question.
It can't be a bad thing that you're doing
No.
those things.
Not really.
I think it's the bad thing when you publicize it as,
Hmm.
look what we did
Yeah.
this week, right? Other
Yeah.
than just, we just did it.
Wait, you said- that's right. And it also gives you this notion, too, of how you, I mean, you know, and from the office, then this is where you go, head of staff, pastor. Pastor is, or head of staff goes, this is a great picture moment to put out on the Facebook. Look at all these folks that came and helped. Pastor goes, I don't think that's exactly what we're supposed to do. So you sit there at your desk for 10 minutes going, how does this work? And then you also have to take into consideration pictures that have other people in the picture. Oh, are we using these folks for, check us out. You know, and whatever this, I'll never forget this story. In urban ministry, they approached us, Presbyterian Urban Ministry and a couple of others that were downtown Durham. The newspaper, the Sun, I don't remember. The Herald Sun. Thank you, sir. They came and wanted to interview us and interview some of the folks we had helped. Just, you know, this is going to look good, and this is going to be cool. This is going to be great. And so they interviewed one of the people that we had helped, and they talked about their power being cut off and what a great thing we had done and everything, and gave them the name. And then what happened was they were Section 8, and you can't get Section 8 if your power's turned off. So then it was in the paper, so guess what? They lost their Section 8. Oh, how great it was that we had helped them. You know, and pat us on the back, and suddenly, the person, look at us. And all of our publicity was terrible because we ended up hurting the person a lot more than we ever helped them. So, okay. So you have to deal with that part of this passage. So what does this bring us to? Y'all aren't waiting for me to tell you, right?
Some of this is
Yeah.
like the simplest thing in the world. Just live like you're supposed to live, but it's also
Yeah.
the hardest.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's all that easy. It's all that hard.
Right. It's very simple. You just
Yeah.
live.
Yeah,
It's very simple.
no. We welcome everybody who walks through these doors. We do that, don't we?
Are we filming?
Yeah. Yeah. During the passing of the peace, when you're standing up here, you get to watch. Yeah. Let us continue forward. That, but that, it does call us this. It is kind of a simple passage, but it's also, where do we recognize God? And we love this part at the beginning, right? When the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the angels are with him, then he will sit on his throne of his glory. We go, yeah, that's the Christ the King we like. But yet it really, really devolves into this other thing, to where the king, and here's another, in case you notice, it starts off as the Son of Man, right? But then in verse, let's see, sheep and a goat, where does it change? He changes to the king instead of the Son of Man. 34, thank you. That you have this switch in characters, whereas the Son of Man suddenly becomes a king, but that you have this king that shows up in the places of hurt and pain and want and need. And it's easier for us, I think, to recognize this God who comes in glory. That's a much more, at least let me talk in terms for me, that's much more of a comfortable God than the one who shows up in the real struggling people of the world. That maybe this God shows up in places we really, really, really don't expect God to show up. Because remember, when we look at those people, what do we say? Oh, there, but for the grace of God go I. So we really don't expect much grace or God there. But yet, this passage says, that's where God's at. That's where Jesus is.
But isn't part of that because the Jews are looking for a Messiah who would be a king?
Yep.
And so they're naturally saying, this king, there's going to be
Yeah.
judgment.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because that's what kings do.
Right.
They come and they
Mhm.
judge whether we have
Yeah.
done what we were supposed to do or not.
Except for the one that shows up ain't the one they're looking for.
Right.
And maybe, just maybe it's just me, but he ain't typically the one we're looking for either. You know? Funny you should mention that too. Because now we get to Phil's thing. Placement. Where's my clock here? Placement. Isn't this interesting? This is the first time, 29 years, where have I been? This is the very last parable Jesus tells. Because what's the next line? When Jesus had finished saying all these things, he said to his disciples, you know that after 2 days the Passover is coming, and the Son of Man will be handed over to be crucified. This is his very last parable. This is it. Interesting that the God that's out there, the sheep and the goats, don't recognize him, the Son of Man. Except what this leads into is, where is Jesus recognized as the Son of Man? On the cross. Thanks for playing. Yes. Yeah. No, that Jesus is recognized truly. This man is the Son of God. Where? On the most despicable place of their culture. And probably it wasn't even a goat. It wasn't even a sheep or a goat. It was just a pagan. Total goat maybe. That he recognized. Yep, the one of the people who was actually doing the crucifying is the one who goes, huh, look at that. Son of God. Who'd have figured? Right there on the cross. What an amazing story to lead right into that story. Oh my gosh. So the fact is that this Son of Man, this Jesus, this Christ, shows up in places we don't ever expect God to show up. And maybe that's, to put ourselves, the good news of this is that's really the most important aspect of the story. That where are we looking for God and where God might actually be. In other people's need, those around us, and maybe in our own. And that sometimes we are the least of these. We don't ever want to admit that, right? I certainly don't. I never want to expect to see myself in the spot of someone who is in need. We run into that a lot when we try to help people. Oh, no, you don't have to do that. I got it. But that we are one of the least of these two, but that in our need, and we go in those moments, God, where are you? And this passage says God is going, what's your problem? I'm right here.
Been here.
Yeah, been here. Where are you? That's the question. Where are you paying attention? And that we live in this culture just like they did. They're expecting somebody totally different. And let's face it, what sells? The Jesus of self-help and the Jesus of, people poured in money like crazy to PTL. Why? Because they said, you give to us and God will bless you. They weren't just giving so Jim and Tammy could live in wealth. They did. But, they were like, ooh, I like this kind of faith. I give to you, and then I'm going to get back a bunch. This passage is like, God is showing up in places where, and in people we don't ever expect. So where do we recognize God is the question. Now, one of my buddies posted in a private, preacher Facebook yesterday or day before, all this passage truly shows us that there's a heaven and a hell, and there's this judgment, and there's this and that and the other. And boy, that thing just lit up with all these. I was just reading all the different comments, and I was like, I don't ever weigh in with all these ministers going, because they start, they get into these diatribes towards each other, and I'm just like, yeah, I'm not wasting that much time on that. But it's a parable, so I don't know how we break everything down to this equals this, this equals this, this equals this. Because if it does, just think about this. Those on his right hand, those on his left hand. If you're standing from up here looking out, sheep, goats. And I don't want to break it down that far. But that maybe the issue is that our expectation of how this God interacts with us is really at the heart of who we are, and how this story bleeds right into the crucifixion and the recognition, the most important recognition of the gospel is that Jesus is recognized on the cross more than anywhere else. Truly, this man's the Son of God. That's interesting, right? And so it helps us. And so there is this ambiguity that makes it tough. I think because what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to help this person or not? If I help this person, am I helping Jesus or not? And I got here's my answer as a pastor, because people ask me this. I have no idea. I don't know. I have every person, every answer ever in the world. Some friends say, I help anybody and everybody knowing full well they're going to buy alcohol, so it's not it's not up to me. I did what I was supposed to do. I have some say, I help through agencies because that way I know the money is going in the right place. Well, right.
Like they're always on the other.
Yeah, no, yeah, and people, like I said, people help. All the Presbyterian churches funded us in urban ministry in Durham, and just like churches here fund us, or fund HCAM and support HCAM, knowing full well that we help everybody, and of course we focus and we always get it right. And I want to say, if you're helping people, you're never going to get it totally right. And is right and wrong even the issue? Sometimes, yeah, you don't want to waste your funds on people who don't need it, but
There's that judgment again.
I know if you think I'm going to do this, I'm never going to get taken, then you might as well quit. I mean, if you live and die on that one, but also maybe that's not even at the heart of the issue. The heart of the issue is how we respond to where God is in our lives. And that, lots of times, according to this passage, we just totally miss it.
Follow your heart, follow the Bible.
Yeah. Right, yeah. That's yeah. Now, yeah, my predestination friends love this passage, because, yep, there you go, buddy. This is it right here.
We won't buy you 3 times.
Boop. Think. Yep, there you go. And I guess that's also the recognition for us all that we pray each and every day, that we begin our day with this, God, I mean, I don't always know, but, I'm going to be looking for you today in places I really didn't expect to see you. Maybe God even shows up in all of the most odd places, like right here in this sanctuary. Who knows? But that, maybe that we're always looking for the heart of God in all different kinds of places. Something to think about. Let's pray. Gracious God, we give thanks for your love and your mercy, and for texts that can really push us to the edge, some that are so well known that we don't typically know them as well as we think we do. But that you are ever present in places that totally shock us. And maybe that's not the God we're looking for, but you're certainly the God we need.